legends in the motorcycle scene is huge, huge within the club scene. Uh, he was one of the founders of the Confederation of Clubs. He actually came up with a lot of the ideals, worked with the lawyers to get this shit put together. And his biggest thing behind it was to get clubs talking and try to freaking sort out all their freaking issues before something, went down on the streets. And I'm often asked who I believe is some of the movers and shakers, if you will, but the ones who actually contributed to what we are now. And a couple people come up in my mind. Uh, my number one, and I believe this to be wholeheartedly, he is truly an outlaw's outlaw, and that was Taco Bowman. Uh, yeah, you can tell, and you know what? I'm gonna put it out there. I used to be a Piston, so of course I'll probably say that. You'll say, but I truly believe Taco embellished what being an outlaw was truly about, and I'm not just talking about the club. I'm talking about an outlaw. Uh, he had a lot of honor, integrity, loyalty, and we're gonna actually be doing a segment on him later this week, featuring him in the legends of the motorcycle club scene. And the next person I think had a big impact on the scene is JR from the SOS, Sons of Silence, and that's who we're going to feature today. And I also think that Sonny had a big influence on the scene. So those are the three giants in the motorcycle club scene, a lot that we know about. So let's take a listen to this Legends in the Motorcycle Scene, and let me know what you guys think in the description box. What makes a man a leader amongst men? Education? Sometimes. Men can be taught to lead. Physical strength? Often. Intimidation can be used to force others to follow. But what is usually short-lived? Money. Many will follow a wealthy man, but money is only paper. Once it's gone, the wealthy man is a leader no more. So what is a leader made of? What is that something special about a particular man that will cause another man to follow him into the gates of hell? What is it that makes a man so charismatic that other men will follow? Without question, protect him and keep him safe even at their own demise. True leader has a strength that comes from within, which cannot be put into words. True leaders are few and far between. When a true leader is lost, it is a loss that is felt throughout the community, like a rock being dropped into the center of a still pond. The ripples touch every inch or the surrounding shore. The muck on the bottom is stirred up, and the pond will not be still again for some time to come. In June 2003, the worldwide motorcycle community lost a true leader. Leonard Lloyd Reed, known as JR, to most as Junior to his close friends and brothers, was taken from this world on June 20th, 2003 in Denver, Colorado. JR was born on September 12, 1947. He was a veteran of the United States Navy, serving during the Vietnam War era from 1965 through 1969. Following his service to his country, JR embarked on his life's work. In 1974, a biker named Boston Bill, vice president of the Springs, Colorado chapter and JR's sponsor, ran a chrome plating shop in Colorado Springs. He employed a young man named J.R. Reed as a buffer. Boston Bill began bringing J.R. around his motorcycle club, the Sons of Silence MC. The club president, Rowdy Ralph, told me, quote, "As soon as I met J.R., I knew there was something about him. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I just knew. I could see his potential, and I knew that he would be a great man one day." Ralph added, "As soon as it showed him interest, we brought him into the club. We patched him out in the summer of 1975, and it was long after that I had to beat feet out of town. Normal procedure would have been to elect a new president in my absence. This time, though, I gathered all the boys together and said, "Here's your new president." After a few years as Colorado Spring President Jr. took the position as national president of the club. For the next 22 plus years, JR remained in place as the undisputed leader of the Sons of Silence MC. But his leadership and vision went much farther than just his club. Rowdy Ralph relayed a story to me that I believe illustrates the true grit that made the man who he was. Back in the late 70s, the Sturgis Rally was nothing more than a couple hundred motorcyclists in the town of Sturgis. Nothing like the huge rally that riders see today. In those days, the town of Deadwood is where the real bikers hung out. Toward the end of the week long party, two rival motorcycle clubs were facing off in downtown Deadwood. While 300 or so members took up a position on one side of the street, another 300 or so rival members took up their position on the opposite side of the street. Just 60 feet apart. At the time, it was suggested that some of the members on both sides might have been armed in anticipation of the pending conflict. Law enforcement was nearly non-existent. There was less than a dozen cops in the town of Deadwood, and they were nowhere to be seen. Civilians on bikes and in cars filled the street, unaware of the mounting tension, like the scene from the movie Tombstone at the OK Corral. The rivals watched and waited for the inevitable. There was no question that it was going to happen, only when. Without informing anyone, JR made his way to the encampment of one of the clubs. He went alone, with no backup. JR felt that showing up alone was in his best interest to make some headway. Later that evening, he told Rowdy that when he went in, he was sure that he was not going to come out, but he knew he had to do it anyway. Otherwise, his worst nightmare was going to become reality. To this day, no one is sure what he said, or how the message was delivered. But before one fist was thrown, before one shot was fired, the world came trickling down the line on both sides of the street that everyone was to pull up and go back to camp. The next day, the two sides headed home. JR's bit of wisdom usually came straight from the hip. He said what he meant, and he meant what he said. You never had to try to figure out where he was coming from. JR was what he said he was. What you saw is what you got. He despised posers and fakes. He once told me, "Be what you are, decide what you want to be, and be that. If you want to be a cop, but don't be a cop who wants to be a biker. If you like fat girls, go out with fat girls, but don't bring skinny girls around to make people think you like skinny girls. Just be what you are." J.R. Reed was instrumental in the formation of the Coalition of Clubs. Originally started to provide legal representation for members of motorcycle clubs. JR took the coalition down a slightly different path. JR believed that most important function the coalition could serve is to promote communication between the clubs. He believed that if various motorcycling organizations could communicate directly, that many hard feelings and conflicts could be avoided. Like others, Reed believed that many of the conflicts that happen between motorcycle clubs are instigated by people from outside the club itself. In particular, some law enforcement agencies gain ground by creating conflict amongst clubs. The news of JR's death is still hard to believe, even after JR handed over the national president's position to his successor. I couldn't help but call him boss, meaning no disrespect to the current president. Boss was the only thing that I ever called JR. Things just won't be the same around here without you. And this story was by J.F. Ware off of the Sons of Silence website. And one quote after talking to one of the members was, JR might have been small in stature, but he was a giant among men. That was quite a story, and one that everybody in the club scene should hear. It's actually more important today than when JR was around, because It's clubs got to start talking, man, because going out there and getting into some scuffles in public only turn the public against us. And I'm not talking about us as me, but us as in general as clubs, because those civilians are not only jurors, but they're voters. And when you get voters in there that are all scared of, say, biker clubs and stuff like that, they have no qualms about supporting these politicians that want to pass these draconian laws. Look at what's going on in Texas right now. It is terrible down there. It is freaking ground zero for police profiling. But at the same time, clubs have to take some responsibility because you can't go out there and shoot up shit or blow up shit and not expect civilians not to get scared. So today, we need somebody like a JR out there who wants to get communication going between the clubs again. And everybody in the Confederation of Clubs owe it to JR for coming up with the ideal he did. And trying his best to get that point across where clubs need to talk instead of fight. So hopefully everybody remembering JR today, he is a monster. And like I said, he's one of the top 3 that I consider to be inspirational on the clubs. You know, like I said before, and we'll do a video on him later this week. Taco Bowman, I always consider an outlaw among outlaws. And then you have JR from the Suns. And then you got Sonny, because, you know, he faced some shit that a lot of clubs had to face now in the early days in the late 70s. He also brought structure to clubs. And a lot of what we see now is because of him. So you got to give props out there. But those are the 3 tops that I consider. And there's probably, you know, many, many more. And we'll get to them in the Legends of the Motorcycle Scene segments as we go on with it. But give hats off to freaking and raise a beer to JR, man, because he was something else. Next segment, we got a little going on here. The news of the day. And I know with the politics, one guy asked me if I'm going to be doing the America in Crisis channel. Yeah, I put some stuff over there. It was mostly a political channel, but with all the work that we do with Biker Angle and Motorcycle Madhouse, I want to add a segment to the Biker Angle about something going on in this country, and I might even have a co-anchor coming in on this, a nice little female, reading the news of the day, so hopefully that goes through. But the next one is about... Today came out that Trump is thinking about doing an executive order of banning the practice of if you're born on this soil, you're automatically an American citizen. And this has to go to how broken our immigration policies is. So I really like to get your guys' thought on what you think about what's going on with what he wants to do. It's a great debate subject and something this country really needs to think about, because now we got a caravan of 7,000 people coming towards our southern border. He's deploying the military, and it is basically an invasion, because without our borders, who are we as a country? And you know, we know both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, they want the illegal immigration because it's good for business. They don't have to pay American wages. They don't have to pay our blue-collar workers. They don't have to pay our union workers. So that's why they like it. But let me know what you think.
So where in the process?
It's in the process. It'll happen.
So, yeah, I think he went on to sign that order today. I'm not for sure at the filming of this episode. So, we'll be looking out for it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I know the 14th Amendment comes involved in this. So, again, it's going to face a lot of legal challenges. Next up, we have news of the day as far as some of the other stuff that's been going on. And guess what? Whitey Bulger, that rat, he got his in prison today. I guess they transferred him to a prison in West Virginia, and he bit the dust. Here it is. What it didn't tell you in that slide was he worked with the FBI. So yeah, he was one of the biggest rats until he turned even on the FBI and went on the freaking road for 16 years until he got caught. So the rat got what he had coming in the joint. Next segment, we got Ask Hollywood. And here we go. Billy, Ask Hollywood question. What up with the ketchup and mustard truth crew? Well, Billy, that's another truth site that is out there. Uh, they're a pretty decent site. They got a lot of news stuff that goes on besides, the issues that they got with the red and gold. I don't know who's behind the site. I haven't followed it much, but I do know that they do have some news stories going on, mostly Bandito way. Again, it's a true site, and where they get their information is usually from people within these clubs that are pissed off that they send in the information. It's not like they go out there and troll everybody. They actually get fed the information from inside clubs or, outsiders, and they post it. So that's basically what the ketchup and mustard truth crew is. I think they've been around for about a year now, and they got a pretty decent following. They got about 1,000 people on there. Again, I haven't followed them much. I follow IOTC a little bit, and I've worked with Kinfolk Truth Crew Busters when they wanted to get a story out there on something that we considered that was major. We would bring them on the air, and one of the things that we really look for is evidence before we bring anybody on our show. You have to give us the proof. You got to let us go through it, confirm it, shit like that. So it's just not like, hey, they fed us this and, we put them on. No, it's not like that. We don't do that bullshit. They actually have to have the proof. And again, we give the opportunity for the other side to come on the show and present their side of the opinion. So anyway, here we go again. Ask Hollywood question. Wondering if you guys can give a newer club some advice on showing respect to other clubs. As I have messaged you before, we are a newer club but have been following protocol all along the way. We are not a one percenter, but we are planning on doing Sturges in 2020 and want to make the proper communications for our trip from New York to SD. Also, contacting dominants can be very complicated. What is the best way to reach out when the answer you get is you are in the life you should already know? Basically, what I can tell you with that is when you're traveling and stuff, yeah, it's protocol. If you're wearing a patch in another dominant's territory, you get a hold of them, let them know you're there. That's just giving them respect. And the way you go about that is go to your dominant right now that you went through the protocol with. You went to them, told them what you were all about. They gave the blessings. So go to them, and they'll get the word out there for you and what needs to be done and all that kind of good stuff. But that was a great question. Really like it. If you want to get on Ask Hollywood segment, all you have to do is what they did. Put Ask Hollywood a question. I'll take it from there, put it on the air, and try to answer it as best I can. But good luck to you with that. Go to your dominant, ask them, and they should take it from there for you. Now we're going to go to our message to the hater segment. And basically, we only got one thing here. Let's see here. What do we got here? Let's go. They got asses kicked, plain and simple. Let me give you some advice. One member goes in bar. Know out two were their shit. The two that were there, club flush out the enemy. Third member is the ace in the hole, someone that can fight. Okay, so you're telling me that because the pagans didn't fight back against the cop who presented a badge, a gun, and all that shit, got their asses kicked, and it's their fault, and blah, blah, blah. Well, I would have loved to see what you would have done in their freaking position. You know, it's real funny, you know, you can talk about shit like that, what you would have done, and you know it's bullshit. You know damn well a cop comes up to you, hey, I'm a freaking cop, and starts going at you. You know you're looking at hard time for assault and all that bullshit. Luckily, there's video cameras around a lot now, and it catches some of this shit, but yeah, that's full of shit right there. Anyway, the show's getting good. Again, we're gonna be live streaming all over the world on different platforms on November 17th, starting at 9:30. Right now, we got our live show going on YouTube at 9:30 every Saturday. So it'll be the same, but come November 17th, we're gonna be broadcasting all over the place. So that's gonna be fun. Getting the studio all arranged for that. And should have a new look come Saturday, hopefully. But anyway, thanks for everybody getting the book, New Age of Biking and Brotherhood. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the kind words, the follows, and all that good stuff. But until then, oh yeah, if you got somebody, again, you want to feature on Legends of the Motorcycle Scene, go ahead, send that in so we to background it and all that good stuff. But until then, I'll talk to you guys later.